What's up, everybody? This is BakaBites. I'm Frankfurter, that is Magically Average, and today we are doing our first impressions of the winter 2025 season. Magically Average, how are you doing?
I'm tired. We're recording
I
this
know.
early in the morning on a Monday.
We are. It's 9 o'clock here. You say early, it's 10 o'clock where you're at. It's 9
I got
o'clock.
up at 8:45 and I went to bed at like
More,
1
more.
a.m.
I'm in the same boat, except I was up at 7:30.
It's also 4
Anyways,
degrees here, Fahrenheit.
yeah,
For
you
anyone
should be.
listening outside of North America or not does uses the Celsius system, it is 4 degrees Fahrenheit where I live. It's
Which
cold.
roughly translates to
It would be
fair.
negative 15 Celsius if math serves.
It is negative 15.5 Celsius.
Boom! Look at me, international brain over here. Quick
So
translation and
yes,
conversion.
you should be snuggled up in with some hot cocoa, watching some more episode twos.
I
But let's
should
get
be.
into that. Let's get into that though. We've watched a ton of shows this season so far. We watched a lot of episode ones. We've watched a lot of stinkers. We've watched some things that are good. But we are going to stop. We've rated each first episode that we've watched. We're going to start at the bottom of our list with the lowest rated and go to the top. And for you, I believe you said you watched 19 individual shows that are not core twos, meaning started last season and is continued into this season.
Yep.
So shows like Orb, Blue Box, Shangri-La Frontier, not going to count that. We've watched them, but we're not going to, put that into our rankings here or into our first impressions because they're just continuations from
The
last
fall
season.
season. Yep.
So you've got 19, I've got 22. So we're pretty even there.
Pretty
We're pretty close.
pretty close.
Um, but I'm gonna start us off with the worst show that I watched this season so far, and that is Anyway, I'm Falling in Love with You. You can
Oh,
find this. You can unfortunately find this show on Crunchyroll. I gave this a 4 out of 10. This
yuck.
was awful.
Well, which to remind our listeners from the last time we did our previews and reviews, we made the scoring rubric. So 4 translates to fundamentally bad but not unwatchable, redeeming factors, but the watchability is inhibited by major faults.
Correct. So I gave this a 4. My notes for it were this is not good. All four guys are very similar but have different interests. So basically, like, same personality, different interests.
Yeah.
While the art direction was good, the animation was abysmal, which it was. The art direction I thought was great, but
Hmm.
execution was awful. And there is nothing in the world that can make me watch an episode 2. Like, this show was
Bam.
real fucking bad.
Well, when we read the description too, because I remember when we were doing our winter preview, this one came up because it was towards the bottom of the list. So we probably looked at it maybe like 10 minutes into the
Yeah.
recording. We read the description and I was like, nope, this seems boring. It's like the childhood friend BS coming back
Yeah.
around. And it's like, oh, now I have a love interest for you, or we're gonna explore these budding relationships. And it's like, it's kind of like a corny setup.
Yeah, and this was a one episode watch for me anyways. I enjoy a good reverse harem, and this was just not
Oh
it
yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
This was awful. So this got a 4 out of 10 for me. This is just real bad. So I don't know. I assume you did not watch this, so we'll just move
No.
on. We'll move
No.
on from the shit and go to the next shit. This one may surprise you. You probably have it on your list somewhere. The next show I have is Minaka Kuroiwa is Impervious to My Charms.
Yep.
You can find this also on Crunchyroll. I gave this a 5 out of 10.
I gave it a 6.5, and I'll explain why.
Okay. So my notes here were not a good start, too much forced fan service and cliche reason for not wanting a girl's attention. Continuation, no. And I say no because I watched episode 2. And
Okay.
I think that episode 2 it does tone down the unnecessary forced fan service, but it still was just not good. Like, it's just the same jokes that repeated in episode 1 without fan service. So I'm like, nope, I'm good. I don't need to watch any more of this. I gave this a 5 out of 10. It's just completely mediocre.
Yeah, I gave it a 6.5 only because I had read a little bit of the manga and I was upset by the amount of fan service because my notes, which I'm reading from a notebook as I was
Ooh,
traveling and had to write it
fancy
down,
boy.
try to decipher my horrible penmanship. Basically, I was saying that it's a shame that the fan service like completely overshadowed the content of the first episode because like as a rom-com it had some bits and pieces to it that I was like, oh, this is enjoyable. I personally like the shtick of like he's basically growing up to work at a temple and like has to like abstain from having any sort of relationship with you know any any love interest. We'll just say doesn't have to be with a female, could be with a male, whomever. But like I like that aspect to it because sometimes you get the ones where it's just like I hate women and then the whole season is just like chipping away and then at the end they're like I kind of like women and they're like oh progress. So
Wow.
I am interested to see where it goes. This was on my 3 episode watch list, I think. Just yeah, the first episode though, way too heavy into like the look at me, I'm irresistible, I'm a sex icon kind of shtick, and I'm like, ugh, it's leaves a bad taste in your mouth. I wanted to give it a 7. My heart said give it a 6. I went in between and gave it a 6.5. I feel like there's enough redeeming qualities in it where if they just stop with the fan service piece, it'll be much better. I kind of relate it to in a way, I guess, the Morocco-kun, the like horror one where it was like episode 1,
Yeah, Miroku-chan.
yeah, Morocco-chan. Like episode 1 was really good, but there was just way too much fan service through like the first 3 episodes. And then they finally just were like, "Oh, we're done with that. We're gonna actually go into like the horror side of the story." And I was like,
We
"Finally!"
cue
Like
you
the
in with the sex. Yes.
yeah, like you mean you're gonna go into the area that is the whole manga is built around? Wonderful! What a shocking revelation you've decided to move forward on. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm hopeful moving forward. I haven't all of these, I should say too. I think other than actually no, I think all of them I've only ever watched the first episode so far. So
Okay.
this is just purely initial perspective with no influence of like watching any further.
Yeah. Do you have anything on your list that is like on par with a 5 or below or anything?
I
That way we can
do,
kind of take okay,
but
well
I was
then you
gonna
go.
save it till the end ish of the worst of the worst.
I mean,
Um,
I have a 5.5 next. That's my next
I
one.
do too. That's a 5.5 is my next one, and I'm
Okay.
wondering if it's gonna be the same.
It's not. Because I watched I'll talk about mine then real quick.
All right.
My next one for which I gave a 5.5 is Blot. Now, this
Oh
was one in
yes.
our preview that we had said like, "Oh, we're not gonna watch it." There is a bit of essay in it. And then I read the description of what the actual story was, and I was like, "Okay, it's a dark fantasy world, think akin to like a Berserk type deal, to where the essay type of stuff happens in the background, where it's like the evil villain is just like, who's interrupting me while I'm in my
Yeah,
chamber
yeah, yeah.
type deal." And I was just like, I don't necessarily need to watch that, but I read volume 0, 1, and 2 because I bought the deluxe edition that came out just to give it a try to see if I didn't like it, I'd sell it back, whatever. And I really like the manga. I think the manga was pretty good. It was I'd give it like an 8 out of 10, the first volume
Okay.
or first deluxe edition.
Yeah.
But Blot episode 1 was awful. It was a 5.5. They kind of introduced this your main character like volume 0 is very critical to this show. And I have a feeling they'll do another episode and then they'll do volume 0. But basically they introduce oh, this is what's going on in the world or what happened in the world, and then introduce characters and like started with volume 1. You're like, wait a second, who the fuck is all these people? Why do we care? What is going on?
Mm.
It felt off from a where they should have gone with it. Should have started with volume 0, but they didn't. Again, they'll probably get to it, I hope, as a flashback once they do another episode. The animation was god awful. And then it was like for an action series, you need to have good animation, and this was just not it. This was bad.
Yeah.
But the reason I gave it a 5.5 is that all those sex scenes that I thought were like would be unnecessary to a show or whatever, happened in the background, they didn't do. They didn't animate it. They got rid of it. And I was thankful for that. I was like, okay, this is not needed. Thank you for getting rid of it. But I realized I had notes here and I never said the notes out loud. I'm just kind of going based off of what I remember. But yeah, for my notes, it said, for knowing what happens in the early portions of the series, this was a really bad start. The animation quality was not good. They skipped volume 0 for now, and they rushed through the most of the first volume, not the first arc, the first volume. They got through a majority of it in one episode,
It's wild.
which is awful.
Yeah.
And one thing I applaud for the show is that they eliminated the sex scenes from the original series for now. This needs to have a better few episodes in order to hold my interest. So I am going to give it one more episode to see if they do go down the route of okay, this flag happens and then they go to volume 0 because
Yeah.
volume 0 is really good and it like sets up
They did.
the characters essentially of why they're there and their
They
prerogatives.
did.
So
It was like George Lucas directed it. They start with episode 4, A New Hope, and then eventually 30 years later you come back to all of the backstory. So
yeah, but I'm gonna watch one more episode because I do like the manga, but this was an abysmal start. So,
well,
what was your 5.5 then?
I mean, you said all the things, like all the negative aspects of Uberblot translate over to mine,
Oh,
which I imagine is going to be it's probably going to be at a 6 for you. I put it at a 5.5.
okay,
That was Sakamoto Days.
okay, yeah, I do have that at a 6.
Yeah. I was in between a 5 and a 6 because I understand that my perspective is a little jaded from the standpoint that I have read a portion of the manga. I'm not fully caught up, but I've
I
read
don't know. I
enough.
haven't read yesterday's chapter, but I'm caught up.
I've read enough to know kind of like to set my level expectations of like what I want out of the anime, and it did not deliver on like any front. Like none.
Yeah,
My note were basically just an anime built around action and fight sequence. The first episode was extremely mediocre. It had moments, but for a first episode was definitely fell short of expectations. I imagine because what we heard, the rumblings coming out but prior to winter season was people are quite
disappointed.
disappointed, yeah, with how Sakamoto Days is being presented. And I'm like, that seems odd because it's one of the few Netflix ones that are that will be currently streaming, right? You have Orb, you have Blue Box. I think Castlevania has a new season out now. I don't know if that's considered to be like a typical anime because I don't know what studio is making it, but whatever, regardless. But then you have Sakamoto Days. So like there's only like a handful of anime that are on Netflix. And so you're like, okay, they've sort of struck gold with a couple of the other ones like Orb and Blue Box, like and Sakamoto Days is set up for immediate success because it's a big Shonen Jump series. Like they can't fuck this up, right? And episode 1 was, I don't want to say it was awful. It was just very subpar.
Yeah,
Like again, I have an anime built around fight sequences where it's assassins, you love high intensity. When you had moments of that in the first it's not like the first episode was like, you know, just relax, let's do a little backstory, let's set up the stage for episode 2 where we get into like the more intense sequences. No, episode 1 had like 3 different action sequences that they showed and all 3 were like pretty bad in their own rights.
yeah.
I think the last one, the last fighting sequence had shining moments where you're like, okay, cool. Like I could see where they actually put effort into here, but like then you have moments in like where it's just Shin fighting our main dude, Sakamoto, and it's like, yeah, it's like, wow, this looks atrocious and I'm not entertained and I kind of want to just turn this off.
I think that their fight scene started out wonderful with the cough drop slash candy deflection of the bullet, and
Yeah,
then it just steadily went downhill to the point of just like when Shin gets kicked, it just is like
yeah,
a stop motion animation. But I think the worst thing for me in that sequence was the sound design, in which Shin hits a fucking shelf, a metal shelf, and it sounds like he hit a piece of tin, like a wobbly piece of tin. It
yeah.
was just not good. But yeah, I have
I
this as a 6. As you said, moments, my notes are moments of brilliance are held back by a myriad of flaws which are hard to look past.
yeah. I
So
I normally
this
don't. I'll say one more thing because I think it's important
yeah,
because it just popped up and I didn't put it in my notes. The one thing, and I normally don't ever weigh this into my ratings. I will say the English translation is significantly worse than like the Japanese version. Like
subtitled,
the
yeah.
the sub is like like very much well above the level of like that you want from like voice acting as a whole from the English dub version.
Yeah,
I
which
love Matt Mercer, but Matt Mercer plays Sakamoto, who has like 2 lines in the entire episode. Okay, you don't get to hear Matt Mercer's sultry voice. It's upsetting.
yeah,
Okay, but like
not much.
all the other characters, because we started off watching the English version, and we were both like, this feels what's going on, and then we were like, let's just
Yeah.
change it halfway through. We'll go to the subtitled version and see, and like the voice acting, the performances were like just so much better than the English version. So,
Yeah, and unfortunately for me, episode 1 was bad enough where I would normally not watch another episode.
oh yeah, same.
But because there is a dub and it is being simuldubbed, I will watch the dub while I work. Every Thursday when this comes out or whenever it is, I'm just gonna watch it while I work and just continue it that way because I do really love this series. It's just that episode 1, that was really rough.
It's again, we say it year after year, and again, that's why I have this weird fear or conspiracy theory about this, that like they rested on their laurels, right? They were like, the series is so big, we're gonna get eyes on TVs no matter what, just from name itself. So if we
Yep.
mess up here and there, it's fine. And but like the performance, the presentation, everything about it was just so bad. Where to your point, I'm like, if I didn't know this series and like had an expectation of what's to come, I would drop it.
Yeah.
Like no questions asked.
So, real quick, this Sakamoto Days is being done by not produced, yeah, produced slash animated by TMS Entertainment. They have 2 other shows this season, and they have Doctor Stone Science Future and Honey
Oh.
Lemon Soda.
Oh God. Well, you see where the animation went for one of them specifically. We'll
Yeah,
talk about one of them later, but
exactly. But they've got 3 shows on their plate this season,
that's a
so
lot.
yeah, especially for like I mean they do a good amount of shows in general, but like 3 in 1 season, you gotta give love to, one of them, and this was not the one.
Yeah.
Um, I've got 2 other shows on my list that are at a 6. I don't know where you're at with your
I've
rankings.
got a couple at a 6.5 as well.
Okay, so I'll go first with one that I don't think you watch, and that is Bahaneko, the elf girl's cat, is secretly an S-ranked monster.
Jeez.
I gave this one a 6 out of 10. It's on High Dive if you want to watch it. You and I were both like, this is gonna be just horny bait.
Horny.
This is
Yeah.
gonna be horny, horny, horny. And my notes are, it's dumb, it's etchy, but it's a fine time. There's nothing new when it comes to pushing the genre forward, but it is also not as etchy slash horny as other series of its nature. Think Inukai's Dog, etc. Like it's all super horny,
Yeah.
but
Well, that one, I mean, Inukai's dog is
that
in
one,
like a whole disgusting, deplorable like
yes.
section of its own. This one,
This one wasn't nearly as bad,
yeah.
honestly.
This is a
I don't know.
series I had seen this like 2 years ago, and I was like, oh, because I saw the manga, and I was like, oh, I
Yeah,
might pick up the manga, and then I read the description, I was like, will I
No.
feel bad about myself for reading this manga? I was like, because it is presented as like, just FYI, it's horny.
Yeah, and I
Uh
don't know if they'll have, like, an uncensored version, and when I say
yeah.
uncensored, I mean even hornier version because there is nudity in this first episode, but it
Mhm.
only happens in one scene. Like, there are other scenes where it's, like, suggested, like, lewdness, but not, like, full on, "Here's some nips."
Yeah, yeah.
So, but yeah, I think it was a funny time. Oh, excuse me, I choked on my, like, freaking spit there. Ugh. No, I thought it was a fun first episode. Like if this gets a dub in the future, I'll watch it because I thought it was funny. I thought it was, it's one of the shows that I would watch while I'd be working because it's just kind of like you don't need to use your full brain to watch it. It's nothing like that you haven't seen before, but it was a good time. Like I enjoyed watching it, but it wasn't, it wasn't a brain burner. So,
Yeah.
yeah, this was a 6 out of 10 for me. It was fine. Nothing bad about it, but nothing inherently good about it. So,
Yeah. I One of mine is that I gave a 6 out of 10 for was I'm living with an otaku neat kunoichi question mark exclamation point.
oh,
Um
yeah. How was that?
it was, I mean, it was fine.
Oh,
I
it was a
actually
6 out of 10.
yeah, it was fine. It had, I was more shocked because the way that it was presented like in trailers and how the title card is, you're just like, "Oh, this is also going to be horny to the max." Cuz apparently that's all High Dive ever wants right now. It's either like
Essentially.
it's either like top tier action stuff or just horny. Um
Or horny action.
or horny action, that's true. This one was fine. There was less horniness than I originally anticipated, which I thought was good. And the characters are okay, I guess. They have a personality. I don't know if I like them so much. Effectively, the premise is a guy, and it moves at a million miles an hour. I should say that too. It like starts off, guys walking, something like girders are falling on him. He's like, "Well, my life's over." Ninja shows up. She's like, "You've got this
You've got
aura
mail.
about yourself." And it's attracting demons. I don't know if you know this. And he's like, what? And turns around, and there's a giant demon that now spawns behind him. And he's like, what the fuck? And she's like, don't worry, I'll save you. And so she saves him, and he's like, thanks. How can I repay you? Because he's a monotone, boring salaryman. And she's like, uh, unlike my look, I'm actually a neat. I just want you to take care of me. And by take care of me, I mean let me live with you and just play games all day and not have to do anything. But don't worry, if you're in trouble, I'll save you. And he's like, okay. And so that's it. And then the rest of it is just these random sequences of like something funny happens. Like she wants to go buy a video game for a new series. And he's like, okay, but I have to go on this trip. So here's food money, make sure you use it wisely. And she's like, food, new video game, new video game. And then comes back and like she's only eaten like beans the whole time. And she's like, I'm dying. Just stupid gag stuff like that. Again,
Yeah.
like it was fine. It was fun. It had funny moments, but it's not something that like you'd want to sit down and be like, oh boy, the next episode's coming out.
Ooh.
So
Yeah, there are 3 episodes out right now. I just double checked.
yeah.
But, yeah, no, this one wasn't on my list. I didn't really feel one way or another. I thought maybe if I had the time, I'll watch episode 1, but I was like, I
Yeah.
can do better things with my time.
Yeah.
I have one more 6 out of 10 on my list. That is Fell in Love with an Okinawan Girl.
Oh,
I
you
thought that this
bastards.
show Yeah, I thought the show was fine. It's one of those educational things where it's just like they say phrases like in a very thick Okinawan accent,
Well,
and it's
not
like that means this, and then it kind of becomes like an educational thing. It's like, okay, I see the appeal in it. I see why people like it. It just isn't for me. That's basically
Frank
it.
no like learn.
I don't like to learn.
Frank watch pretty picture go boom boom. Um,
Exactly.
I mean,
No,
since we're
I
talking about it, I gave it a 7.
fair.
Yeah,
I mean, I see the appeal. It's just not my thing. I don't know.
that's fair. I mean, I like learning more about other areas, like because so one, this is kind of a real. Well, no, it's not that far off. One aspect of Hokkaido girls are super adorable that I love is that they do teach you about like Hokkaido. Like they teach you about the northern region of Japan and like the different culture,
Yeah.
like the different cultural stuff, and like even simple things like food and like places to go and like activities during the different seasons. Like I like that, and they sprinkled that into the rom-com series, right? This one's just yes, it's geared more towards the educational side, but I will say the animation's really nice. I
It
laughed
is.
I laughed a handful of times in the first episode, so it does have some good comedy. And
Chortle. Yes.
and it it chortled. You didn't like the zombie moment? I thought that was hilarious. Um and I like that because I thought it was an Okinawan accent. It's not. It's like a whole different language before they were adopted into mainland Japan and like, took on the Japanese language. They had like
Yeah.
their whole own like dialect and um
Language.
yeah, basically. Yeah. So it's like it's learning that piece to it too. I was like, "Oh, that's cool." I will say it can run its course if it just sticks purely to
The
the education
educational
side,
bit.
but it has set up a love interest between the main character and the girl who we can't understand, as well as a potential other love interest, not even potential, it's obvious, with another character. So, I think it's at least set up well in the first episode to tell viewers like, hey, you're gonna learn some things about Okinawa because it's a cool area. But also too, it is at the end of the day, like it's still an anime, so we're gonna have like a story and some level
Yeah.
of like plot throughout. So,
Well, I understand that they did the little bit of setup between the two girls and the main character. In my opinion, it wasn't enough. Like it was more so I'm gonna focus on the education first and the story second. So for me, like distinguishing it from like a Hokkaido Gals, which is very educational, it does go story first, then education
yeah,
on
you
things. It's like, oh, while we're here, we may as well teach you about this thing. So for
it's
me, this was,
okay. It's okay that you just want to watch a cat bounce off of an elf's big boobs. It's fine.
I mean, hey, it's fun. But no, I again, this is a six. I understand the appeal. It's not going to be something I continue
Yeah.
because there is a lot more on this list that I'm like, yes, I
Oh
want
yeah.
to continue watching this.
Oh yeah. Um, my
So
other
I'm done with my sixes. So
yeah,
by
my
all means,
my two other 6.5s. I have Tasakare Hotel, which we watched on YouTube.
I
Um,
have that as a 6.5 as well. That's a weird one that's available on YouTube,
it's
but
a
I
yeah. I mean, I
yeah,
don't. I mean, it's cool. I mean, I like the fact that it's on
hey,
YouTube.
it's
That's nice.
the fact that it's accessible is great.
Yeah. First episode was just kind of it was mediocre, I thought. Like
Yeah,
it starts off it sets up a lot to uncover, I'll say. Like the world that they're in, this kind of purgatory, the different characters that are already in the hotel that you come to know somewhat in the first episode. Like our main character, it felt like when we were watching it, the first reaction I had afterward, it felt like Escape Room the anime, where it was
kind of.
like because the premise of this show is that there's these souls that are in purgatory that are neither dead nor alive, and like if you're in the hotel, you're just kind of in this limbo state, but if you're able to leave, you go on to the next
You
world, basically.
you have figured out if you are still alive or if you are dead.
Yes. So like the idea is that these people come in and they lose like everything they know about themselves. So like they don't know their name or their identity. So like that part's cool because like our main character shows up and you don't see their face. Kind of their face is shadowed by their hair, and you're like you kind of like this blank character. And then they go into their room and they uncover clues and they're like, oh, this is who I am. And then you get to see who they actually are. Like, okay, that was kind of cool. But then like they're like, oh, and another guest has showed up and this person has their own room. And then it's like again, it's like escape room the anime because they go in and they're like, what are all these clues? What does this mean? Can we have a hint? Like,
Clue Master,
yeah.
please.
Like again, it was intriguing and they did set up a lot to be resolved as the anime progresses. I just didn't feel like it was enough to make me interested to watch like beyond even like a second episode. Like it was
Yeah.
just it was just kind of as I mentioned, it was just kind of like mediocre. It was
Yeah.
eh.
I agree. My notes were the show, and this is probably my biggest like disappointment with it is that the show starts out with a very dark and eerie tone, and then gives way to a really kind of lighthearted detective story.
Yeah.
So,
Like,
like,
yeah,
I
this is
really wish
getting
that they would have stuck with that tone. Like, if they stuck with that like dark and eerie tone, I feel like it would have lent a little bit more to the series,
agreed.
and probably would have gotten me to watch an episode 2. But because of that, I probably won't.
Yeah, this is me nitpicking to that extent too, but it was annoying that like you get a character that gets transported to a new world and almost instantly they're like acclimated. I'd be
Yeah.
freaking the fuck out. I'm like, there's a dude who's just like an ember. He's like Calcifer in a suit, like, and there's like a weird like goat horned woman as a bartender, and God, I can't remember the animal's name. It's escaping me, but it's got these big old eyes that just like stare into your soul. There was like one of those there, like I'd be shitting bricks, and our main character is just like la di da, like everything's kind of natural. I'm used to this already, and I'm like, no, that's not whatever. But again, that's
Yeah.
nitpicking. Um,
I gave that one a 6.5 as well. So I've got two others, but I don't know about how many you have
I only
left.
have one more 6.5, and I imagine you gave it the same if because I doubt that you gave it a 7. But my last 6.5 is Zenshu.
Yeah. I'm actually
Yeah.
surprised you gave it a 6.5 as well.
I no, I agreed with you. I agree with you. Let me crack open my Blues Clues notebook here to read my
So while
notes.
you do that, I will give
It's
you my
open.
notes.
Oh.
I've watched the well,
No,
okay,
you
then
watched the
fine.
first. No, no, Mr. Fancy Pants, you watch more than me. Go ahead, break our rules that this is supposed to be first impressions of first episodes. Go on, give your perspective on the rest of it. Ding dong, let's hear it.
No, I was just
Class
going
is
to
in session,
say,
and you made my camera die. Look at you.
yeah,
Look
and
at what happened.
you're gonna try and restart it and it's gonna fuck your whole computer to hell and back.
The battery was full. Let's just see if it'll turn back on.
Well, while you wait, fix your camera, yeah, we both gave this a 6.5. For me in specific, I said that I'm gonna watch more, but there's something off about it that I can't put my finger on.
Yeah.
And I was gonna watch one more episode, which I did, and I've changed that one more episode to watch the dub while I work because this is a simul dub as well. Same with Sakamoto Days. Um,
Which that's shocking enough as an original series that it's
this is an
simultaneous.
original series by Mappa, I believe,
Yeah.
and I had high hopes for this, but this just I think the thing that felt off about it is this is just another fucking isekai. It's just another isekai with a funny premise, but like
Well,
the characters are very like it's nothing super original. I feel like it's another thing where the character is overpowered, but they don't know how to use their powers, but once the powers come out, it's like, great, I'm overpowered. I'm gonna fix whatever's happening in the world. And it's just like, great, okay, so it's very very predictable, it seems, and it doesn't feel as good as it could have been and what we thought it was going to be.
yeah.
I don't get me wrong, animation's phenomenal. Animation's great,
Yeah.
but animation can only get you so far.
No, I agree. I my big thing. Okay, let me go to my handy
Now you
dandy
can get your handy
my
dandy
handy dandy
notebook.
notebook here. So I said Mappa took the chance to flex its animation skills in this original series, and they certainly didn't disappoint on that front. However, the story so far and the setup for what's to come was less than desired. This may have I gave like a kind of asterisk more to come to this, but I said this may have the biggest upside in terms of future development, but episode 1 was somewhat lackluster.
Yeah.
It's basically just because, like, the first episode, you get introduced to your main character, who's this very talented manga artist turned producer turned director, and their whole thing is like, just they work solo. They're on their own. Like nothing can. They want to. They want to be the one that does everything. Right? They're working on this big movie project that's already behind. This other person comes up. They're like, "Hey, can you just give me notes?" And they just go
Yeah.
fix everything. And they're like, I'm sorry, can you be more specific? And she's like, nope, just fix it all. Actually, no, never mind. I'll do it. And they're like, no, 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 you're doing too much. And she's like, I'll do it.
Yeah, I think what would have made this series better for me, this is just personal nitpick, personal what I would have liked out of this is for the main character to flip flop back in between her world and the world she's reincarnated in, because the world that she's reincarnated in or transported to is basically her favorite anime film
Yeah.
and or series, one of the two. I don't really remember which, but
A
it's just like
a
I feel
series
like if she was
that
able
was
to like,
a series
yeah,
that was not critically.
acclaim, but she
Yeah.
loved it regardless. I feel like if she was able to flip-flop between the worlds with, like, unexpectedly, like, she does something stupid in her world and she or, like, even goes to sleep and then she's transported to the other one, I think
Well,
that that would've been a bit better rather than just her being stuck.
I mean, they do kind of maybe hint at that because the way that the I mean, we've already said spoilers because it's an isekai, I guess. So, but the way
Yeah,
that happens is like she eats old scallop bento box, but the scallop is
clam.
like, or scallop or clam, but it's like
A
tie
rainbow
dye
clam.
colored. Yeah, it's like tie dye colored. So you're like, that's you would have noticed that, right? Like that would have been easily recognizable as something that's probably you don't put in a mouth. Like that's a no no. So
Yeah,
I'm
but she
wondering,
has hair over her eyes and she's
yeah,
not looking at what she's
whatever,
eating.
whatever. I just
I don't know.
I think to your
We've
point though, there is the potential that it could do like this back and forth. Like she's not actually dead. Maybe she's in a coma or something. I don't know. But like, yeah,
Yeah,
it just the first episode was more pretty colors than anything, less like actual story and setup. Which to each their own. It just wasn't anything stellar in my opinion.
agreed, and we've spent way too much time. We've still got a butt ton of shows to go through, so let's
Yes.
speed blast through a few of these. My next 6.5 is The Red Ranger Becomes an Adventure in Another World. I literally read you the title of the show. You've watched episode 1. It's exactly that. It's insanely stupid, but it's so funny that I can't help but smile throughout the entire episode. Like,
Nothing wrong with that.
it's it's one of those things, like, it's a long title. As soon as you read the title, you know exactly what you're getting,
Hmm.
and this was no exception. It is exactly that. Red Ranger defeats the big bad, but also dies because of the explosion after defeating the big bad,
Oh no.
gets reincarnated to, another world as the human portion of the Red Ranger, but also with the Red Ranger gadgets. So he's in the world, and when he does his transformation sequence, and there's like you know how when Power Ranger transforms, there's like an explosion behind him. It's the same thing with like Brave Bang Braven, where they get in the mech suit and the music starts, and the guy's like, "What the hell is this music? What
Yeah.
is going on?"
But all the other
Same
side characters.
same exact thing. All the side characters are like, "Why did you transform? Where did this explosion come from? Are things gonna keep exploding?" Like, it was pure it was poking so much fun at itself, and that's why I liked it. But at the same time, I don't need to watch another episode of this. I understand it. It's fine. It's
Yeah.
it's a good, funny show, but not something I necessarily need to watch. If it gets a dub, I'll watch it. But if it's otherwise, I'm good.
Fair enough.
Uh, so that's it for my 6.5s. I don't know if you have anything left in this list. Otherwise, we're
On to
gonna
the
skip
sevens.
on to the sevens. I'm just gonna go with the two that I'm not gonna continue, and that
Oh.
is Ameku MD Doctor Detective. If this gets a dub, I'll watch it. I watched
House the anime, you mean?
essentially House the Anime. The first two episodes came out, so I watched the first two. Like they both came out at the same time because it was like its first small arc.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it was its first, So my notes were another detective show had a solid start, but not sure if medical background slash setting is necessary, i.e., they got the case at the hospital and then we never see the hospital while investigating or anything else. Just make it a detective show and this person has their own clinic, and you probably have me sold a bit more. But the fact that it's like she works at a public hospital and they get the case at the hospital and then they leave the hospital never to return until the case is closed,
Yeah.
essentially. Like it's just eh, give me House the if you're gonna give me House the anime, stay in the hospital. If you're not, have her like own personal
St-
clinic so that way she can do whatever the fuck she wants
Stay
to
in
do.
the fucking hospital, Shinji.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this is I'm not gonna watch another mini arc of it, but I enjoyed the first one, and if it gets a dub, sure, I'll watch more of it. But
Okay.
otherwise, I'm good. And the other one is something that we can both discuss because we both watched it together, and that is Momentary Lily. I will not be continuing the show because holy fucking shit, what the chaotic. My notes for it is
Wow.
chaotic. What?
I just no, that's just it's surprising that you're not continuing, but go on.
Yeah, so my notes for it is chaotic to the Gen Z degree, but a beautiful show that can take over the season if it's like has a solid through line. Like we got a little bit of plot in episode 1, not really. We just got a lot of explosions and girls just kind of hanging out, and I feel like in trying to cook, like I don't know if cooking is going to be the through line for this. And if it is, great. But otherwise, like I don't know where they're trying to go with the series.
Yeah, I mean, so I gave it a 7 as well. I am gonna give it 3 episodes at least. Um, and I agree with everything that you said. I will. The only part I have disagreement on is that they at least do set up what's to come at the very end, albeit the conversation where all of this plot comes out on is spoken at like 5,000 words a second. So it zips past you and it's hard to concentrate to your end. Like it is like watching TikTok the anime because everything is going so fast. Like you don't have time to like digest what you've just watched. It's like, oh, on to the next scene. And now they're
Yeah.
talking. There's too many people talking. And what's happening? There's an explosion. Now there's a new robot. And okay, now there's this new girl who has a weapon as well. But okay, they're cooking now. They've just transitioned to cooking. And oh, the episode's over. It felt like you blink and you're like, I just
Just like 15
20
things.
minutes just zapped by in an instant. Yeah,
You and I had to pause this show so many times to be like, what the fuck did we just watch?
yeah, there was a lot. I mean, I will say it's another original series. Gohan's has.
Go hands, go hard.
Yep. I mean, they've like solidified themselves in the animation world in terms of like their level of animation coupled with
Cinematography.
like how they choreograph scenes. They're the ones that did the depressed cat and
Masterful Cat is depressed again today, and
the girl I
the
like
girl I
forgot her
forgot her
glasses.
glasses.
Yeah, which if you're familiar with those, it keeps up with that same level of animation quality, so it looks very pretty, like it's gorgeous. Um,
Yeah.
the hair is spaghetti. We say that because it moves constantly and there's like
So
it's
many
so
strands.
distinct. Yeah. Like they took meticulous amount of time to like make sure they did as much hair strands as they could to animate so that it just goes like constantly.
And surprisingly, the anime character models minus like the oversized villains, not 3D, they're 2D. So
Yeah.
like somebody had to animate all of that hair.
Yeah. Um and they definitely did not skimp on the jiggle physics for one character who
Oh my
they
god.
they could have
Forgot
they
all
could be
about that.
sitting still and just kind of turn slightly to one direction and I think their tits would fly and hit their face.
If you've played
Um
Xenoblade 2, it's Xenoblade 2 or 3, it's those
there
physics
you go.
essentially.
But I mean, I'm going to give it 3 episodes just because I am intrigued on how the story can go. Uh I am in agreement with you to the extent that like it's hard to determine if it's going to be like the apocalyptic world or discovering what this girl's past is or
Yeah.
become a cooking anime, right? Like I if it's going to keep up with this level of intensity, who knows? So it has major potential, but it needs a focal point. That's what I put in my notes. It just needs to be able to go forward and not zip around constantly to keep the attention of brain dead
Yeah.
goldfish Gen Z folk.
I've got one more 7, but it's something that I'm going to continue. So if you have another 7 that you're not going to continue,
I got a
let's hear.
couple 7.5s. That's it.
Okay, so the last 7, solid 7 that I have, because I do have a bunch of 7.5s. Honey lemon soda. I put this at a 7, but I am going to continue this.
Wow. Wow.
The
Okay.
the only reason I put it at a 7 is because it is an entirely very slow start. And I understand why. They did it for the character development for the main character and to her get over her, being only in agreement or, kind of a non-competitive person and actually asking for help. I get that. But to me it was very slow. But I
Wow.
did really enjoy it. I really enjoyed all the characters, the main girl, the main guy, and then all the side characters. I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to continue this show. This is a full watch for me still. but I think that the first episode was just it was good. It wasn't great, it wasn't bad, it wasn't fine, it was just good. So, yeah, I gave this a 7. What
I
about
mean,
you?
I'll break. I mean, we're talking about it. Um,
Yep.
this is in my top 3 for best first
Oh.
episodes. Yeah,
Yeah, this has not cracked my top 3.
I I
Surprise.
gave I gave it a 9 out of 10. I said outside of the annoying tough guy MC who's kind of like a douchebag, but you realize like, okay, he's nice. He just presents himself in kind of a dickish way, which some people like those characters. I find them less than entertaining and desirable, but to each their own. Um, I continue on with my notes to just say it. This anime is slated to be the next best romance. I think while episode 1 takes its time, it does it in a meticulous way. I feel like everything had a purpose, which was nice. I feel like they didn't just put something in there to act as a buffer to, push out the time till the ending. Like everything had a purpose. The flashback to when she had those papers, to her history in middle school and the folks that were bullying her, to the entrance exam and like what happened there, to her home life and like her parents. Like just those like even small interactions like had meaning to everything that happened at the very end where she like finally stands up for herself, right? And like gets the
Yeah.
attention of the main character with the bleach blonde hair who's like kind of a tough outer side, and then you realize like, oh, he's just a softie on the inside. In fact, one might say he could be a little sour like lemon soda.
Oh.
I will say it is weird, like the corny shtick of like he's just like, I like lemon soda now, I just drink it all the time. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever. It's fine. I don't care. I could get past that piece. I just thought the rest of it was I thought it was incredible. I
Yeah.
think
No.
it's certainly it's yes, it is slow, but you have to imagine like what you're doing is you're building the groundwork and making it very clear and very identifiable in terms of like what to expect moving forward. Right? You have all your different characters and groups of characters that are going to go through their own moments of growth, inner reflection, self improvement. You can see the budding relationships between different friends and folks. Like it's all there and it's all well put together in the first episode. It's not like, dumped on you and you have to like sort it out. It's like they give you the building blocks and they teach you like, all right, here's where everything goes and look at that. You have your base framework for the anime and you're like, wow, that's
Wow.
beautiful. I
Wow.
I I do believe this could be
Wow.
like, wow. This could be like the next best like pure romance. I know you're probably in disagreement to say it's like Blue Box is up there. I argue to say that that is a sports anime at its core because the romance side was somewhat abysmal in season in the first core, and I know we're in disagreement there. You can go listen to our fall 2024 review podcast to hear my thoughts. I thought the romance was pretty shit in the first core, and I understand why. I get it, but I still think it's primarily a
Core
sports anime.
Core
This
2 is very
honey lemon
romance
soda, whatever, don't care.
though.
Honey lemon soda, I think, is going to be the next like pure romance anime that will lead the charge in this genre.
Yeah. Again, I get it. I'm gonna continue watching it. I have this on my full list. I don't see myself dropping this. I just think that the first episode was good. It left a little bit more to be desired, but again, it was still very good.
I just it's rare to get such a welcomed and like purposeful payoff at the end of a first episode because you don't want to make it seem too gimmicky, right? You don't want to make it seem like they've experienced this like moment of like, yeah, I am fucking stupid. Why don't I just do that? Right? Like there has to be it has to be grounded in some truth, right? And that was why I felt the first episode was great because like everything culminated to the very end. That is one thing I don't want to spoil because I think it is kind of a very impactful moment. And it's like you could see all the different things that happen. You're like, wow, this is it's it's great to see like such a huge moment happen in the first episode that leads itself for future episodes to come. Why are you laughing?
I thought of a funny joke about this show that I'm just not gonna say because I was like, they did introduce a gimmick in this first episode because it happens twice. And then I was like, "Oh no, Frank, why'd your brain go there?" Basically, the gimmick that I was thinking of is that they shower people in soda, and then I was like, "Oh, it's yellow soda." I was like, "Oh fuck, it's a golden shower." And I'm just like, "Nope, Frank, don't say that out loud." But here we are. I've said it out loud, and we're gonna just move on to the next one.
What's annoying is that normally we record at night and like I
Yep.
give you a pass of being like, oh, like, it's a long day's work. It's a Monday, right? Today's Monday in the United States is a national holiday for Martin Luther King Day. So we both have the day off, which is why we're recording early in the morning. And I'm like, you know what? This is good. Maybe he'll be refreshed. He's got a full cup of coffee in him. He's going to be just on top of his game. And
I'm on top, but my brain's still
I
weird.
think what I've realized is that you have a window of 30 minutes in a day where your brain functions at the most capacity it can, which is like 2%. And then the rest of the day is just kind of like chugging along.
I mean,
Bare minimum.
we are about an hour into this recording,
Don't
so
care. Don't care. That's no excuse. No excuse.
love you, buddy.
Anyway,
Moving on to the next few because we're an hour in and
yeah, I know. We're an hour in. I get it. Let's go.
I've still got 10 shows to
Talking
go
about
through.
golden showers and bullshit.
So 7.5s I have I'm getting married to a girl I hate in my class. I
Okay.
really enjoyed it. I thought the comedy was funny. It's tropey as hell, but it does it well. That's basically my entire notes for this. Is very tropey, but it does it very well.
Yeah, that was the
Yeah,
reason why I gave it an 8.
yeah, that's fair. It was a border for me. It wasn't like I think an 8 to me. It has to be great, and I don't have many 8s on this list, and I only have one 9. So it's just one of those things. Like I thought it was like on the cusp, but because like tropes are very, I mean, they happen in every freaking show. This was just like chock full of them. It's just like it did it well, but it's like that to me isn't something great. It's just a good, solid show. It was in between for me.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it from the standpoint that it was a different take on like a rom-com style. It had the tropey moments, I get that, but I think the characters outweighed them. I like the characters a lot more than I like in any of these other kind of rom-coms where they're just cookie cutter, no personality to them, no like real backstory to them. I find it interesting. I find the relationship between the main character and his grandfather and the girl and her grandmother to be hilarious, right?
Yeah,
And then it does a nice thing where it gives you like just a little taste of some other characters that might throw a wrench in everything and cause some commotion. So I
agreed.
thought it was good. This is one where the shticks and everything I can certainly get past because I do find the characters entertaining enough that they can carry the weight of the anime.
Fair enough. But yeah, that one I'm going to continue watching. I plan on watching that this entire season. The only show that I have left on this list that I'm like iffy about is I'm giving it 2 more episodes. It's going to be a 3-episode try, and that is Welcome to Japan, Miss Elf.
Yeah, I gave
You and
that
I both watched this. Oh,
I
what?
gave it a 7.5.
Yeah, I did too. You and I both watched this together, and we were both pleasantly surprised by this show. We thought it
Yeah,
was going to be something completely different, but it honestly was really adorable. My notes were really adorable with a good premise, hoping that a good story develops because they basically introduced the 2 characters and why they were there, etc. But they didn't really set up what the rest of the show will look like, and it can go in a bunch of different directions. I feel like so for me again, it's going to be 2 more episodes to see where they take that and where they develop it, but I
yeah,
really, really, really enjoyed the first episode. I thought it was a very solid showing.
yeah. I agree. I said it's simple and sweet. That's this kind of all you want. It scratches an itch. There's nothing like super extraordinary about it, but it was just an enjoyable sit down watch.
Yeah.
I will say though, I do think that they've at least to some degree set up what's to come. where like the elf is going to learn more about Japan. Whether it becomes like educational, where it's like, oh, here's all the different, areas
The
of,
Okinawan show.
yeah, basically, but like set in the Kanto region. So it's like here's everything in Tokyo, right? Or like,
Yeah,
or maybe we travel around Japan and we'll show you different things. Whether it becomes that or they go deeper into the connection between the two different realms and like why it's happening, what extrapolating more on that side of the story, which I would find pretty interesting. Who's to say? But I do want to give this a 3 episode watch because I imagine it either way it goes, I could be entertained. It's just whether or not it can keep with the level of presentation from the first episode that is yet to be decided.
correct. And the rest of whatever we're about to talk about is going to be minus if you've watched something that I haven't. I'm going to watch the rest of the entire season. So next, I have 3 more 7.5s. I don't know if you want to go next.
Uh,
And
yeah, I have one more. It's one we just watched. Funny enough, it was the 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You. Um,
season 2, I
yeah,
gave that
season
an 8.
season two. It was
To
fun.
me, I gave that an 8. It was a blast. It was
Yeah,
more of what I loved about season 1.
I think the only reason I gave it a 7.5 is just because like I like the fact that they spent the first half of the episode going into like this subtle little like refresh recap thing
Fourth
of
wall
like just,
break with just in jokes, etc.
yeah, which is, those are always fun. I like that. Then the second half is, there's, shocker to no one, there's another girl. Um and it was like, it was cute. It was cute and it was fine. I just, it I feel like they could have done a bit more setup with the new character, but they spent more time doing like that, you know, let's get back into the swing of insanity with this 100 Girlfriends anime, because if you forgot how off the wall bonkers it is, because it came out, the fourth wall broke and they said it came out in what, spring
When did this show
2023,
when did the show
fall.
stop airing? December 2023.
Yeah. So it came out in fall 2023, and they're like, we're past this, the bliss moments of our romance, because we're now airing in January 2025. Like, that part was fun. Like, I enjoy, again, it wasn't, the 7.5 is not like anything against it. This is still one of my favorite continuing series that's out right now. So I'm gonna watch it all the way through. It just, I wanted them to spend a little bit more time on this new character, because I feel like this new character they have a funny personality about them, and aesthetic to them. I'll say
Yeah.
that.
So the reason I gave this an 8, in my opinion, is that I gave season 1 an 8, and this is just more
Of season,
continuation of the first season. So it's just
yeah,
like, yeah, this is on par with what I wanted. This is on par of what I've seen. This is exactly what I wanted. So just give it to me.
yeah.
So yeah. For 7.5s, I've got 3 more.
Oh boy,
I have from bureaucrat to villainess. Dad's been reincarnated.
wrong. You're so
I
wrong. You're
I
so
gave it a s-
wrong.
I gave it a
You're
7.5.
so wrong.
So my notes for it, probably the second or third villainess show I've watched, but it's fun and full of charm. I enjoyed the fact that they brought the original form slash voice of the dad for a majority of the inner thought sequences to make it a bit more over the top. I hate when, not necessarily hate, because I know Jobless Reincarnation is like this. I'm not a huge fan where it's like they die or they get reincarnated, and then that original personality and voice actor just goes away for a majority of the entirety of the series. I enjoyed the fact that they brought back the dad in a lot of this. I thought that that was great. I thought that his personality shining through, him being the actual inner thoughts of this character, was great. So it allows the voice actress of the actual villainess to have their spotlight, and then the dad, like the other personality, to have their spotlight too. The fact that it's kind of like 2 main characters in one, and I really enjoyed that aspect. Again, I gave it a 7.5 because it's kind of just another isekai, but like villainess show. Like it's in the sense of like the setup is very samey of just like, oh no, I died, I am now in my a video game world. Like it's yeah, but I do think that it sets its side apart from other villainess shows in which they bring back the dad and the comedy is top tier.
I just want to remind you that this episode is dedicated to first impressions of first episodes. It's not like early predictions on like what's going to be at the top or what's going to
I
win.
never said it was early
I
predictions.
know,
I
I know.
gave my
I'm just
first impression.
I'm saying this because I'm telling you you're wrong and stupid. This
Okay.
is number 2 in my top 10 or my top 3 of first episodes. I there opening and ending sequences aside, to which I've already argued and am still of the mindset that they are the best of this season so far. Like the show itself was awesome. I loved it. I loved every single bit to it. I love the fact that they go into this backstory about how this 56-year-old bureaucrat, who was going out to save a child, got isekai'd into this video game world, was immediately able to adapt to it because, oh, shocker, his daughter played the game and their whole family are otakus. That's
Fucking
hilarious.
weeb.
Fucking weaves left and right. Love it. I love the fact that he's grappling with the problem of trying to stick to the character and the story because he's playing this like very shrewd, off-putting ice queen type character in this otome game, but he himself is not like that. So he's like, oh, okay, well, she's supposed to be doing this, and then like what he says is completely different, but at least he's polite about it, and he introduces like this level of like bureaucratic, like elderly man politeness to her speech and etiquette, and all the characters are like, what is happening? What's going on? But we kind of like it. Is this okay? I love this. I thought it was hilarious. My wife and I watched the first episode. We were both laughing hysterically at times. It was so much fun. I, for a genre that has, I equate the villainess genre in a similar way. I'm gonna probably get skewered and thrown to the pits for this one, but sue me. I equate the villainess genre to isekai genre in the sense that there's an oversaturation of very different, like less than desirable anime for each genre, where like there's the small nuances between different anime is not enough to make me want to go watch them. Like we have a number of like isekai. Let me just go pull up live chart real quick just to share with you the ridiculous amount. Like for instance, we have Headhunted to Another World, From Sailorman to the Big Four. That's an isekai. We've got even oh, that's just an adventure one. Whatever. This is stupid, dumb stuff. All I'm saying is that the minor differences between anime and the isekai and villainess genre is minimalistic, and nothing can set itself apart other than like just a handful. This is one of those ones where for the villainess genre, it sets itself very far apart from the rest, and it's like its own thing. Like it doesn't feel like a standard villainess anime. It's like got heavy amounts of comedy to it. I love the fact that there's like an otaku and weeb side to it, like the characteristics of the characters, like personalities and everything. I don't know. I found this first episode to be very enjoyable, more so than what I would have expected just from reading the premise. Because again, I was intrigued by the premise alone. Watching it was like a whole different experience. So first episode alone gets a 9 out of 10 for me.
Fair enough.
Will it keep the 9 ranking? Likely not, right? I can see it dipping down to an 8, maybe a 7.5, depending on how the season goes. But for a first episode, no questions asked. It's a 9 out of 10.
Fair enough. Like I'm not gonna yuck your yum. Again, it's just for me, it was funny. It was just another. It was because a lot of villainess shows are very
Don't.
samey and setup, but this is very different.
Okay.
Because again, they bring back the dad character.
Yeah.
Usually they get rid of the persona. It's just I am stuck in this body now. I'm going to have the same voice for internal thoughts, external thoughts, etc. They bring back the dad for everything, and I really thoroughly enjoy that.
It's perfect. I love it.
To speed blast through a couple more of these, another 2 more 7.5s. I may be a guild receptionist, but I'll solo any boss to clock out on time. It's just on the cusp of an 8, but it's like it's funny. It's a funny concept with a good execution. I'm looking forward to watching more of the show and seeing where the story will progress.
I gave it an 8. I think the characters, I think just the main character alone is enough to take this along to an 8. I thought she was incredible. I love the setting. I love the comedy. I thought the comedy was on point throughout the entire episode. There's just hilarious moments of like inner monologue to like external conversations that took place that made me laugh. So
Yeah.
yeah, this was an 8. This is a for sure continuation too. I think we had it on like the 3-ish, like sleeper pick, still suspect, but this is first episode is on the full watch list now.
Yeah, no, I actually had this on my full watch list when we did the
Okay.
preview season. So, but again, I've seen a lot of overpowered shows. I've watched a bunch of them. It is another overpowered show, but it's got a good twist to it, and that's why it's a 7.5, not an 8. I
Yeah.
can see it becoming an 8 if the comedy stays at a consistent clip, but I think it'll probably dip down to a 7. And the last 7.5 I have is Serario Utility, which is on High Dive. It is a golfing anime. Um, I put as a golfing anime, it's basically an approachable or it's basic and approachable in learning about golf. However, the protagonist is adorable, and the side characters are a great complement in making this show full of charm. It's a wonderful show. I think it's great. I'm looking forward to watching more of it. I just haven't gotten around to watching episode 2, but I gave this a 7.5. It was right on again another cusp on the 8, but to me it was a wonderful first episode.
It's so funny that like you have the same notes as me almost like to a T, and yet our rankings are completely different. Like this was an 8.5 on the cusp of a 9 for me. Again, I look at it in its totality on a first episode basis. It is an original series. This is our third original series of this season. Okay.
Yep.
I have my notes. Adorable characters, check. Fun story, check. Some humor to boot. Yep, that's also a check. Butte.
It's a butte
Um,
clock.
I've also been waiting for this anime for a while because it was announced like a handful of months back, and then I think it got delayed, and then it finally was coming out, and I was like, yes, I can't wait. I also have a fascination. Well, that's a fascination, but I have a very strong interest in golf. I golf every summer. I golfed in high school for our team. Like, I love the sport, and so there's been like a couple of golf anime that have come out recently. We had Birdie Wing, we had Tombow, we had God, I can't remember
The
the
one
other one.
that's on Netflix.
Yeah, none of them really like hit home with me in terms of like a pure golf anime. This
Yeah.
is that. It's that like seeing someone find an interest in a sport, like the setup to that whole, getting introduced to golf was great. Basically, like going through every single club imaginable at their school and failing miserably at every single one. I'm like, girl, I feel you. And
Girl
then
sick.
stumbling upon golf because she's walking down the street and an old man thinks he sees an angel and dies, and she has to like bring his soul back into him. Like it's just everything about it was so pure and so adorable. I don't know. I thought it was fantastic. This is a full watch for me, no matter what. My only thing was, again, looking at the first episode, I gave it an 8.5, on the verge of a 9. I said time will tell if it can keep pace with this momentum and push forward to greater feats, because they did kind of rush into like the main character meets like the golfer. She teaches her how to golf. She swings a couple of times. She doesn't really do much. She comes the next day. She swings a couple more times. She does a little bit better than last time. And then, okay, let's go to the golf course. And she's like, what? And then that's how it
Oh.
ends. So you're like, okay, this is funny. I like it. You're expecting like, failure galore for the first like half of the anime, but then it's like, okay, what are we gonna see progressing along afterwards? That's what I'm excited for.
You've convinced me. I will move it up to an 8.
Yay!
It was really it was
Yay!
a really good first
Yeah.
episode.
Again, like just a first episode. I will say like to people that are listening and that are like, you guys are fucking dumb and stupid and your opinions are bad and you should feel bad. Just know that like Sakamoto Days is not going to end the year at a 5.5, or good God, I hope it doesn't. Right? Like
Yeah.
I am confident to say that Sakamoto Days will reach a 7 to a 7.5. Okay. Purely looking at these from first episodes, right? These are our rankings for them. This is not a end ranking overall review. We've taken the show in its entirety and given our thoughts. This is strictly the first 20 episodes of a new season of an anime. What are our thoughts? This is our thoughts, and that's why I gave it an 8.5 for Serario Utility. It's just
Did you mean 20 minutes of an episode?
Sorry, 20 minutes of an episode. Well, sorry, no, because 20 minutes of a new season. It's
Yeah, you said
literally
20 episodes of a new season. I was like, I
sorry,
think you mean 20
20
minutes.
minutes of a new season. You're getting the first little glimpse of what's to come. What are your thoughts? Right?
So, yeah. And just to keep us going because we are way over time. I've got 4 shows total. One outside the top 3 and then my top 3. Do you
I I think yeah,
I want you to cover whatever else you have outside of your top 3 because
I
you
mean
have
outside
your
of my
number
top
1 left.
outside of my top 3 is just what we've already, what are likely in your top 3. So I guess I can start.
The only thing do you have anything left outside of your top 3?
I have one, but it's the same
Okay.
as the both of us.
What is it?
No, outside of my top 3? Yeah, I have 2.
Yeah. Okay, and then talk about it because I only have
But
one
what I'm
left.
saying is that okay. All right. So outside my top 3, Solo Leveling season 2, Apothecary Diaries season 2.
Okay.
Both of them are
Apothecary is my number 3. Solo leveling is right outside.
okay. Both of them are they're 8s out of 10s.
Yep.
They're good.
Yep.
Okay? The my notes for both of them are basically the same to a similar degree. It's effectively just like it's a continuation from where we ended, and you're getting to see a little bit more of what's to come. It wasn't anything special. It wasn't anything grand. They didn't like throw a crazy curveball to start off the season, right? You're not getting like a big like shocker the moment that we step into the new season, right? But and that's fine. Like I didn't expect
Yeah.
that for either of these. So it's good. I like for soul leveling, my only other note was that we basically get to see a bigger glimpse into what might be happening in this system, so to speak, for our main character. And then for Apothecary Diaries, I said it was adorable with some plot building, and the cliffhanger really set the stage for what's to come. I thought,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I anticipated for both of them. So yeah, but they're
Agreed.
not enough to warrant getting in the top 3 by any means, even though they're going to be 9 out of 10s by the season end.
Yeah, for solo leveling, I said great start to the new season. I especially like this particular arc. I've read all of solo leveling, so like for me, I really like this arc. It's already over. Um, like I
Shocker.
said, small arc. I really liked it. 8 out of 10. Apothecary Diaries, similar notes. I did slow start but triumphant return to the series. They did lay a few seeds of interest outside of the ending caravan tease of what's to possibly come this season. I think that they laid a few groundwork things outside
Yeah.
of the caravan. So
Apothecary Diaries felt more like a continuation than the start of a new season. And I think
agreed.
that's why it was slower to begin with, but had a nice kind of punch at the end with the cliffhanger.
Which is why I put it in my top 3. It was my number
Yeah,
3 this season. Um, I know we've already covered your 3 and 2, so let me get through number 2 for me, and then we can talk about our number 1 because I assume it's the same.
probably.
My number 2, which you did not watch, and I highly suggest you do it. Flower and Azura. It's on High Dive. I gave this an 8.5. My notes for it were an absolute powerhouse of a first episode backed by so much emotion from a 1-2 punch of a main character duo. I originally wrote the show off, but we'll be adding it to my 3 episode list. I'm adding this to the yeah, it'll be 3 episodes
Yeah.
because I still don't know, you know, how the rest of the show will pan out, but it'll more than likely see a full season watch from me. This show, again, I wrote this off. This is a show about basically a girl starting high school, joins the broadcasting club because she really likes reciting like poetry and other types
Yeah.
of just like monologues. The absolute pure emotion behind these monologues and the character, like I was like, you hear a couple characters give like telling stories and giving monologues and whatever, and you're like, oh, this seems fine. Like it's very good. Like you can tell, like, oh, the voice acting behind it is very good. And then you get near the end of the episode where the main character does like an actual poetry like reading to themselves on the beach and gives so much emotion behind it that it like you can tell
Hmm.
the voice actor went fucking ham. And it like I'm just thinking about it and it's giving me chills. Like it is so good, and for a slice of life, it is backed by wonderful animation. I think like slice of life is one of those things like it can be fine animation and it be a good show. I think that like for a majority of it, the animation is fine,
Hmm.
but like the impactful moments that you need to be impactful, the animation takes like it goes off the charts of like very well done. I'm really looking forward to watching more of
Yeah.
the show. It is on High Dive. Please go watch episode 1. You'll understand.
I think I didn't so much write it off as less than just not being interested in the premise more than anything.
That's
So
fair.
it wasn't like I read it and was like, ew, gross. It was like I don't know if it's gonna like capture me, but I will go give it a try.
Yeah. And then our number one show, I believe you and I
Your number
same.
one, it's honestly my number 3.
Really?
Yeah, honey lemon soda was my number 1.
Oh, well then never mind.
It honestly was in a fight between it with Serario Utility, honestly, for in the top 3 spot.
I'm a bit surprised because you and I we
No,
watched.
no, you're not. I told you why. I told you why.
Fair enough. My number one medalist. I thought that this show was brilliant. We went into the show knowing that it is a critical darling. The source material is,
Mm-hmm.
and I was not expecting what we got. I honestly thought that the show or the series, like, because I've seen the cover for the first one, get the main two characters. I thought that they were going to be a duo, and just one is just a really short girl. Not the case. Coach and skater essentially, but the
Yep.
coach does have aspirations of their own. But my notes for it were an incredible first episode from start to finish, heartwarming and funny with a bunch of passion to boot. I cannot wait for the rest of this season. Like it honestly, it took me by surprise how good the comedy was and how good the like emotional scenes were for this show.
So I agree with you. The one distinction, and it's a very big distinction, which is why, again, I almost didn't put it in my top 3 because I felt
Yeah.
that it completely took away from some moments in the first episode was that the emotional speeches and the comedy side overlapped way too many times and like deflated certain moments and made them like less impactful. Like there was a moment where the young skater is very shy, very timid, giving this passionate speech to her mom while she's on the ice, basically just saying like, I understand that my dream is going to be hard to come by. I understand everything that's against me, but I want to do this. I want you to believe in me. I want you to just see, like, let me show you what I can do. And like she's sobbing and like, her mom is emotional too. And then the coach just plain face just goes, just get her fucking ass on the ice. I think that was almost his line. He was like, just get her ass on the ice. And
I can look it up, but yeah,
I'm like,
it wasn't
why?
that.
Like that does not need to happen there. I get that there are like the whole first episode is like a big pendulum between like emotional comedy, but sometimes it bashes into each other and it's just I find it to be so distasteful. And there were multiple moments of that too, which I'm like, why? Like just there's no point. I understand it's likely coming from the manga. I get that. It's a fault with the manga itself as well, right? But like it was such a weird shift in tone. Like and it was so jarring because it happened like immediately after a speech or like during at times too. It's like in the middle of some momentous speech of a character or like this huge growth moment in the first episode. It's like, let me just not just sprinkle some comedy, let me just fucking sucker punch you right in the gut with some comedy. And it's like, why? So unnecessary, man. It was
That's
still
fair.
great, like I still loved the first episode, but it was just like I wanted those moments to last and linger, not be abruptly stopped by stupid remarks from the coach, who I do find very annoying in the first episode. I'm like, just for a couple seconds, just shut up.
Fair enough. But yeah, that was my number one. I don't know if you want to go over any more of your, top three and talk a bit more about them
I
because I
no, I
know
mean,
we've been talking at length
yeah, we've been
today
talking
about
at length. No, I think I'm pleasantly surprised by what I have in my top 3. I think Honey Lemon Soda, while it was on my list of 3 and it was likely going to easily transition to a full watch, I didn't anticipate the first episode being as fantastic as it was. And I'm really excited for what's to come because I do think, like, out of all of the ones that I've given high remarks for, I do think that this one can keep its 9. I think a handful of other ones will likely fall a little bit. I think Honey Lemon Soda can keep its 9 ranking throughout the season because it is set up so well. It has every single piece available to it to continue along through the next 11 episodes. And it will likely, not saying definitively, it will likely remain in the top 3. So it's either beating out some of my other loves of the season, like 100 Girlfriends or Apothecary or Solo, or Serario. Uh, but yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by that one.
Can I make a prediction?
Sure, if it's not stupid.
I think you're gonna enjoy Blue Box Core 2 so much that it'll crack your top 3.
Well, I mean, if we're sorry, I wasn't considering continuations for top
I
3.
know.
If we're doing that, then no, you're absolutely wrong because Orb is definitively my number 1, no matter what.
Oh, I know. I know. I
And
know Orb is gonna be
there's
definitively your number 1.
you know what?
But I'm saying I think that Blue Box will have a stronger Core 2 that it will crack your top 3.
That thing has to compete against Apothecary Diaries. It has to compete against Solo Leveling. And like I said, it
Mhm.
has to compete against Honey Lemon Soda. On top of the fact that I still have high hopes for Serario, I have high hopes for I May Be a Guild Receptionist. There's no way. There's no way. I'm not gonna say that it won't get like an 8 out of 10. I just don't think it's gonna crack my top 3.
We'll
Top
see.
5, maybe. Top 3, no. If I will be 100% true and honest with as I am with all of my reviews. If it is in my top 3, I will eat my words and I will say that you were right and I will apologize profusely. But I will give you my guarantee to say that it will not.
And we apologize profusely for taking up so much of your time today. Thank you so much for joining us in this episode. Thank you for listening for so long. As if you got to this point, we greatly appreciate it. We will be back next week with a brand new episode. Now that the social media ban of TikTok has been lifted, question mark, or
Yeah, for now.
for now, maybe an extra 90 days. We're still on TikTok and we are still posting shorts on YouTube and Instagram. So if you want to follow us there. But again, we will be back next week with a brand new episode. So until next time, Spark Triumph. We'll see you then.